I get to introduce our first speaker. So, I'm going to do it justice, okay? Because I'm going to read the bio and then I'm going to give a personal introduction. So, strap in. Here we go. All right? Just got to find that page. All right. This next speaker is Marilyn Jensen. She's an Indigenous artist, advocate, speaker, and educator. She's an active Indigenous artist for many people, speaking and teaching on many important matters relevant to her community. Her passion lies within reclamation and revitalization of ceremony, songs, culture, and everything foundational in her identity. Dukusti. Yadastin, Dusudle, and Shawat Guch is inland Tlingit, Daka, and Tagish Dene from Carcross Tagish First Nation, belonging to the Duklawadi clan under the Tagish Keat Hit, the Killer Whale House, in southern territory of Yukon. Through her father's lineage, her ancestry is also British, Scottish, which she equally honors, and she has taught First Nation governance at Yukon University and works closely with many Indigenous communities as a consultant focusing on wellness, governance, and cultural strengthening. Her main methodology in speaking, teaching, and facilitating has always been through storytelling and sharing the beauty of her culture and identity. Marilyn has taught important and engaging training for Yukon government on Indigenous history, land claims, self-government, and self-determination for over 20 years, and for numerous First Nation governments and organizations in countless communities. She has worked for her nation as the senior government official in governance, and with the Self-Government Secretariat of the Council for Yukon First Nations. She taught in the Indigenous Governance Program at Yukon University in its early days, and more recently she has developed a new company called Lateral Kindness Incorporated, officially being launched soon. In partnership with her colleague, friend, and adopted brother, Thomas Shepard, their workshops deliver awareness and understanding around Indigenous lateral violence, offering tools and calls to reclaim kindness instead as a form of resistance. Marilyn has traveled all over the North and elsewhere to share her knowledge and bring awareness to Indigenous narratives. She celebrates and honors her culture by engaging in traditional dancing, singing, drumming, choreographing, and storytelling with an inland Tlingit dance group she founded and leads, the Dakakwan Dancers. They have danced and promoted their culture internationally in New Zealand, Taiwan, Japan, across Canada, and the US. They have been honored as recipients of the National Indigenous Tourism Award and nominated for an Indigenous Music Award. In 2016, Marilyn was honored by the Governor General of Canada as a recipient of the Polar Medal for Cultural Reclamation in the North. Woo! She has earned a BA in Anthropology from the University of Alaska and an MA in Indigenous Governance from the University of Victoria. Marilyn speaks professionally as a keynote with the Speakers Bureau of Canada, often sharing her knowledge on topics such as reconciliation and wellness with large corporations and Indigenous communities. She currently serves as the chair of Indigenous Tourism Association of Canada and as president of the Yukon First Nation Cultural and Tourism Association. So she wears a lot of hats. And also I just wanted to put a plug in there that there is a gala this evening. What's the gala? Can someone tell me? Yukon Women's Aboriginal Council 50th Anniversary Gala. Goodness, jeez, Jayla. So the reason why I'm throwing that plug out there, because we're going to throw that plug out a lot. We were told today that these two events were happening, and they didn't really know about it until it was later in the game. And they're like, you know what we should do from now on? We should now make this an annual event where it's put together. So there are still tickets available for the gala tonight, and because of that big intro, and the reason why I'm talking it up to you, because I am a part of Dakakwan Dancers, and they will be dancing tonight at the Kwalindung Culture Center at 7:30. If you guys are interested, tickets are still available. You'll be hearing the MCs plug that throughout the day as well. So I guess I didn't really do a personal introduction there. I just plugged our group, but hoping you guys enjoy, and this is She is my auntie, and in Indigenous cultures, aunties and uncles take on the roles as mothers and fathers. So she is like another mother to me. And I've taken that Lateral Kindness workshop. I've graduated, 2 levels. And so I highly recommend, if you haven't taken it, take it. I also recommend you bring it to your communities. It's a lot of fun as well. And without further ado, this is my Killer Whale clan sister, Marilyn Yedustin Jensen.
All right, Gunishish Kanasa. That was quite the intro. I'm a little bit embarrassed because my intro is longer than my presentation. I'm just joking. No, it's not. So good morning, everybody. It's really good to see you all. I know some of you are looking at me like, what is this? It's an auntie cane. It's actually got auntie on there. But I've been dancing too hard for the last 17 years, and now I need hip replacement. So that's what's going on, just in case you're worried and wondering. But anyway, I'll start properly. And Gunishish Kachuhan, thank you so much for inviting me here today to do a presentation with you. And I can see that, it's that time of the conference when everyone's like, feeling a little unsafe, trying to scope out your surroundings here. So I'm just gonna get you guys all to stand up and jump around, jump around, shake it out, smile a little bit, give me some good, nonverbal communication back that you like what you're hearing. I can see the first table's empty. Everyone likes to go to the back of the bus. All right, that's cool. I was going to ask Gary to come up and we'd sing a song and make you guys dance, but that might be a little bit emotionally unsafe at this time of the day. So, so I used to work here, right, in the Indigenous Governance Program when it was first starting. So I was just, coming in this morning. I haven't been here for a while. A lot of really good memories came back. And, one of the things that I love the most is working with youth and being able to share and hold up and inspire youth, because you are important and you're the future and you'll be taking things into the future. And for, a lot of you who are Indigenous, you are the vision and the prayers of your ancestors. You're their dream. And we have a lot riding on our shoulders. And a big part of it, just to start all of this, is what is wellness, is healing, is health, is happiness, is for our people to be joy, to have joy and experience joy in their lives. So that's what I'm going to focus on this morning. And I'm going to focus it very specifically regarding lateral kindness and wellness, and specifically with youth and the work that you're doing. Everyone here, not just, youth, but everyone here is, insisting that we have that in our lives. And in fact, taking it into the form of Indigenous resistance, is that we're resisting away for the things that are unwell for us, that make us not happy, that make us feel unsafe in our spaces. So I'm just gonna, Jesse's operating my PowerPoint here. So I just wanted to say Gulishish to the organizers of this conference, and thank you for inviting me. I'm very honored to be here. And I wanna also acknowledge Taylor, Gary, and Jedrick. You guys are doing a good job. Love to see people stepping up to do these kinds of things. And also, of course, I would like to acknowledge Kwanadun First Nation and Ta'an Quechin Council for, always opening up your, your hearts and your love and welcoming us for all the important work that we do here. Many of us live and work on the traditional territory of those two nations. So, Gunishish, Masicho, and Shonethan. Next slide, please. So Gary already introduced me. Thank you for that. Kanasa, it was a beautiful introduction. Thank you so much. But I am from Karkwas First Nation. I'm a killer whale. I always tell people, like, our crest, if you have Tlingit ancestry, we're very, very strict about our crest and our clans. And you can only wear the crest of the particular clan you belong to. So for Ducklawady and Carcross, we're allowed to wear killer whale, eagle, and wolf. And so sometimes I'm like, notice a similarity between those those animals? Fierce, right? And that's who we are. We come from fierce people. I always like to acknowledge my mother and father as well. Both of them are in the spirit world now. My mom was Doris McLean and my dad, Phil McLean. Beautiful, wonderful people that left a legacy of kindness, which I'm very proud of. I'm also the great-granddaughter of Peter and Agnes Johns, great-granddaughter of Tagish Maria Johns and Scotty and Clara Williams. And also, because Michelle is British, my grandma, my father's mother, almost came to Canada on the Titanic when she was an infant, but for whatever reason they didn't. So this is the story of our family, and that's why I have this major obsession with the Titanic. All right, so let's get into it. We're going to jump right into it because I have to rush off to go do a Lateral Kindness workshop after this. All right, so I always love to start with this particular photo, and really emphasize the theme that post-intergenerational trauma healing is possible, because we know that we have a lot of trauma in our communities, and that really kind of goes into everything we're doing. All the work we're doing is we're dealing with trauma day in, day out in our Indigenous community, and that includes research. That includes, work in the health field. That includes work in the cultural revitalization field. That includes work, in the governance department. It includes work as leaders. Everywhere we look, we are dealing with trauma and massive trauma. If there's anything I've learned over the last 11 years of doing, this work out in the communities, is that our people are not healed yet because we have been so severely hurt. And so this dynamic is ever present. But the message, clearly is that we have the capacity and the ability to move forward and to truly heal within our hearts. So I always like to show this picture, and it's to honor the strength, of our women, but also our matrilineal, ancestry. So this is a photo, that's the earliest photo of anyone in my family. Is over here is Grandma Clara. And, her legacy is that she was the first to encounter settlers coming into this territory. And that was a lot. It was a lot. My colleague Ingrid always used to say, imagine 30,000 people showing up in Whitehorse overnight, because that's literally what happened with the Trondoquichin people. Is all of a sudden there were 30,000 people on the traditional territory. So there was a lot to endure. There was a lot to resist. There was a lot to survive through. And she survived. She survived that. And then we go to my grandma, Agnes. This is also Gary's great-grandmother. She's my grandma. And her name is Agnes. And she was the first of the children in the Yukon to go to the Chutla Residential School in Carcross. And she survived it. She survived 16 years, and that is phenomenal because, as we know, so many of our ancestors and relatives did not make it. They did not live through that experience, but she did. And of course, we know all the trauma and the challenges and the difficulties attached to that experience. But she was able to live, and she was able to have 12 children, 9 of who survived into adulthood. Very strong woman, and she taught us to be strong as well, regardless. She taught us about resistance and how to keep walking forward. And then there's my mom, and I hope some of you had the chance to meet her. I know you did, some of you have. And my mom's legacy was definitely a woman before thinking and planning and seeing before her time. So I grew up, in the 70s and the 80s, and in those days, it wasn't as bad as my mom's time and my grandmother's time, but still, society was, the message to us very strongly was, you guys are bad, you're stupid, you're ugly, you're not going to amount to anything. That was what strongly was coming down through society, and it still does in many ways to Indigenous people. But my mom was there every day. And, and this is kind of funny, but she used to say to me, Marilyn, you are a Tlingit princess. If it was a long time ago, you would be a princess. That's who you are. Your ancestors are noble and you are worthy. She used to tell me that when I was a little girl. And she would say to me, and you are smart. And I remember thinking in my head, no, I'm not, Mom. Because that's what school system made me feel like, that I wasn't smart, and that's a whole nother workshop talk about, surviving through the education system, including post-secondary. And then there's me, and I feel that my responsibility, because my mom and her generation, all of the leaders and the elders before us, they fought just for basic human rights for us here in the Yukon, us Indigenous children. Because in 1973, we were those children they talked about and Together Today for Our Children Tomorrow. So their legacy was just to provide a space and to provide respect so that our people would have a place at the table. And so I feel that my responsibility and my accountability to my people and my community is to take that further. And especially in regards to healing. We have to heal. We have to overcome our trauma. And we have to be stronger so that our children can walk in this world. And that's my daughter, Guna. And she does walk in this world knowing absolutely 100% she belongs. And she is worthy, and she has every right to do whatever it is that she wants to do in this country. And many of you, I'm looking out there, I see many of my, people of my age group, my generation, I see their children out there. And I see that in you as well, is that you have that confidence and you have that ability to just keep going forward. So I always like to start with this, to really ground ourselves in all of our ancestors. All of you have ancestors. Think about them and think about what their dreams and their vision are for you. And I can guarantee it is they wanted us to be happy. They want us to be happy. Okay, next slide, please. Thank you. So just a little, about what the heck is it that we're doing. So my colleague Thomas, who is a non-Indigenous 6'4" dude that came up from Ottawa back when I was working at CTFN. Now he's like my brother because Auntie Fran adopted him at my mom's potlatch. So he's like my brother now, literally. So we've been working with, in the Yukon for 11 years, doing what we call lateral kindness workshops. So it began in the Yukon. Did we skip a slide by any chance? No, we didn't. Okay. Okay, so let's go to the next one. So we've been doing workshops in the Yukon for 11 years, and it all started at Kwanlin Dun. And I always like to acknowledge Kwanlin Dun. So I was teaching here at Yukon University in the Indigenous Governance, and we were doing a class called Community and Organizational Wellness. And so one day we talked about lateral violence, which is a dynamic that exists very strongly in a lot of Indigenous communities. And I'll tell you a little bit about what that means. But basically, it's an emotionally unsafe environment that is really brutal, really hurtful, scary, has caused a lot of pain and a lot of, challenges in our communities. So anyway, we talked about that one day in the class. And then Kwanlin Dun called me, some of the staff that were working there, because some of them were in my class. They called me over. And they're like, hey, Marilyn, you know what? Like, we have lateral violence in our community, and it's not good. We totally know we have lateral violence, and we don't want to have it anymore. So can you come and teach, like, starting off with chief and council, can you guys can you do the whole staff? There's like 100 of us, then our whole community, all the youth, and all the elders, and everyone, and then how we can fix it. And I was like, Okay. So anyway, I drugged Thomas into this situation, and we started doing this workshop at Kwan Lindan and just really got into it. And since then, we've been all over the place. We've been through the Yukon many, many times in many communities over and over again, because we all know we're not going to fix lateral violence in one workshop. It's a process. And since then, we've been into Alaska. I just actually was in South Dakota a couple of weeks ago doing a keynote about lateral kindness at an Indigenous wellness conference. That's where I got this beautiful necklace. So we've been everywhere, even over to Newfoundland, of all the insane things. So it's really spread a lot. And sorry, I keep hitting this thing. So a lot of, the lateral kindness, when we first started, we basically had to, start at ground zero and research. What is this stuff? We did a lot of research in regards to what is lateral violence? Why do we have it? Where does it come from? What is it? What is it doing? All of those kinds of things. And really what I found is that, we weren't even using terminology to name lateral violence about 20 years ago. 20 years ago is when people first started saying, this is a thing and we need to call it something, because it does have a very detrimental impact on us. So I always, really kind of, my mom passed away in 2018, so she was obviously, very much a part of our early days, and the inspiration and kind of, like her encouragement for this work. And one of the things that she always used to say is that it's time for our people to be happy again. And what she meant by that is that we need to find joy in life, because there's been so much pain and so much hurt, and that we carry that. And we've been carrying it for generations and decades and decades and decades. And so this dynamic of lateral violence has been with us, for a long time as well. And she used to say our people are strong, beautiful, and noble. And so very early on, the term lateral kindness emerged. When we started doing, research and talking and developing a workshop about lateral violence, like 2 weeks later, we started saying that, the counter to that is lateral kindness, something that we already know, something that Indigenous people already have innately within them, because we are not mean people. Somewhere along the line, we learned how to be mean to each other, and so anyway, so that's where lateral kindness came from. We'll go to the next slide, please. And really all of the work, and, one of the things that I would teach, to basically in any class and to any, kind of school and to any kind of, field is that whatever you're doing really needs to be based on our own values, your own values, because all of us have values. But Indigenous values, some of the traditional values from my culture that I'll share, which we refer to as Hakustiyi, and that's Grandpa George and Auntie Angela. They were like the couple back in the day, One of the cool things is that they got married the Indian way, and then the church came along and told them, you're not married. You didn't do it at the church. And their parents, or Auntie Angela's parents, Mariah and Tegus Johns, were like, they're married. And they resisted the fact that the church was trying to force them in to get married their way. So I was like, yes, when I heard that story about them. So our way of life, Hakustiyi, discipline and obedience to the traditions of our ancestors, respect for self, elders, and others, respect for nature and property, patience, pride in family, clan, and tradition is found in love, loyalty and generosity. Be strong in mind, body, and spirit. Humor, hold each other up, listen well and with respect, speak with care. We are stewards of the air, land, and sea. Reverence for our Creator, live in peace and harmony, be strong and have courage. So these are all our, and many more. And the values are really the same across the board, or they're very similar. If we went over to Nova Scotia and studied Mi'kmaq culture, we'd see that they would have very similar, and foundational values. So this holds up the work that we do, and all work that we do. When you're struggling and you're trying to figure out, like, who am I and what am I doing? Because that's going to happen every now and then in life. You just go back to your values. Is this good? Is this needed? Am I making an impact? Because as human beings, we want to make an impact. We want to do things that, have importance and relevance to our community. All right, so let's go to the next slide, please. So we're going to jump right into it because I don't have a lot of time today. Usually, we take about 2 days to fully go through workshop. So I'm just going to blast through this. So what are we even talking about when we reference Indigenous lateral violence? And again, I wanted to say that it was only about 20 years ago when Indigenous people themselves started utilizing a term to describe this phenomena, this dynamic, that all of us know what it is. I mean, as far as feeling it, seeing it, experiencing it, witnessing it, being a part of it. All of us have been there in one way or another. So we need to define it because we can't fix something if we don't know what it is, exactly what it is. And so a lot of times people are like, yeah, how do we fix it? Just take us to how do we get rid of this? But we can't do that. Because our grandparents, and specifically my grandpa, would always say, you don't know where you're going if you don't know where you've been, right? So we can't fix something. And in fact, if we try to fix something that we don't understand, we can make it worse, right? And those of you in health probably know that better than anyone. You're not going to fix my leg if you don't even know what's wrong with it, or my hip, right? Okay, so what is lateral violence, and specifically Indigenous lateral violence? Because ultimately, we're talking about emotional violence, right? We know there's a lot of different violences that exist out there in the world. We're really in the sphere of emotional violence. That's where we're dwelling today. So what do we mean? Lateral violence occurs when members of the same Indigenous community or workplace seek power by pushing each other down or by working against each other. By pushing each other down, we mean acts that shame, threaten, intimidate, exclude, demean, undermine, silence, or belittle another person. So lateral violence also weakens the bonds and functions of the group as a whole and is never necessary or productive. We don't need lateral violence. It's not, I don't need to come in here and be like, okay, I'm your teacher. I'm going to treat you guys all like crap today because it's necessary. You're not going to learn any other way. We know that's not true. We know that's absolutely not true. People learn better when they feel connected, when they feel safe, when they feel, acknowledged, when they feel seen. They don't feel like they're going to learn anything when they're afraid and scared, and intimidated and all of those things. So lateral violence is absolutely not necessary at all. So we're also looking at violence from a community perspective, because as Indigenous people, what is the most important thing to us? Our community, right? Our people, because we have that strong sense of belonging to a place and to a group, right? I am Yadoltin. I was named after my great-great-grandma. We come from Carcross. We come from Natasaheen and Tagish equally. And our people migrated from the coast 10,000 years ago. So all of us know exactly where we come from. And lateral violence is the thing that compels our people to say, you don't belong here, right? And what could be more heartbreaking than that? What could be more soul crushing than when your own people that you love the most tell you, no, you don't belong here, right? And that's what lateral violence will say. So our community and our identity is the most important thing. And we rely on that community to hold us up rather than pushing us down, right? That's where we're supposed to feel safe. Okay, next slide, please. Thank you. So lateral violence says you don't exist, you don't belong, and you're not important. So what does lateral violence actually look like? I always say in the workshops, it's sometimes can be very passive aggressive, very quiet. You don't even know what happened. I could have just come in today and went over there and just stabbed metaphorically somebody in the heart with my words, just cutting them down, belittling them, hurting them, making them question everything about what they're doing, and then just waltzed away. and no one else heard it. No one else seen it, just them. And they know, you just hurt me. But I don't even know how to articulate what you just did. But you know that I tried to hurt you. So what does it look like? And we spend a lot of times, really kind of dissecting and deconstructing what it is, because that's how we understand. We got to kind of come in from a bird's eye view. I always say you're either eagle or on the raven side, come in and try to remove yourself from the situation. Because one of the difficulties and challenges for people who have been a part of this is, man, you get in there in the weeds, right? You're in it. And to be very honest with you, this is why I don't work at Carcross-Tagish First Nation. I love my people. I love my community. But I had to leave my job because it was unwell for me. I was being hurt. And, after 14 months, I was counseled by many mentors who said, it's not worth it. Your wellness is more important right now. We need you to be strong, and this is hurting you. Leave, and so I did. But what does it look like? So when we deconstruct it, we can see that there's a person doing it who we refer to as a perpetrator or an aggressor. They're the one doing the lateral violence. And basically what they're doing is they're putting hurt out there. They're projecting their own hurt on other people. But really what they're doing is that they're really, really, disempowering themselves. Because I don't know about you guys, but if I know somebody is going to do lateral violence at me, I'm not going to rush over and be like, oh, hi, look, I'm going to come in for a hug. I'm going to walk around all the way around the whole periphery of Superstore to avoid them, right? Because no one wants to be hurt. Nobody wants to do that. So they're really disconnecting themselves from other people. And they're also causing harm to the community overall. The target, the person that's being, that the lateral violence is being directed towards. And one of the interesting things we learned over the years from our participants, because so much of this workshop has been informed by the people who have been in it, which is well over 4,000 people now. Indigenous people and non-Indigenous allies have been in these workshops. So they tell us that if you're the target and no one ever tries to protect you, you eventually become mad and angry at your community. It's no one is trying to protect me. I come here every day and I just get hurt and stepped all over and thrown down on the ground, and no one tries to protect me. And so they become angry and disillusioned with their community, family, whatever it is, and a lot of people leave. It's just I'm out of here. See ya. I'm not going to put up with this. And then the bystanders or the witnesses. So that's everyone else that just is around. So I could have come in today and just blasted Gary over here. You guys kind of heard it on the mic. I said something just really mean to him. I didn't realize it was being blasted on the mic. You guys heard it. You weren't directly involved. But how are you going to feel just by being exposed to that kind of negativity? It's going to bring you down, right? So even though we're not directly involved with the lateral violence interaction, we are still impacted by it because it's negative energy. Just as we are impacted by positive energy, we are also impacted by the negativity. So, a lot of people have said it's just this constant big black rain cloud hanging over us. Everything we do, we have meetings, lateral violence. We have a staff meeting, lateral violence. We have a clan meeting, lateral violence. Facebook, lateral violence. It's just constantly there, around us. And it really does bring us down. And I said Facebook for a reason, because you all know people get behind their phone or their keyboard and just give her, It's just say whatever I want, and with no accountability. Because, I'll say a lot of things that are said on Facebook, people would never in their right mind say it directly to somebody, right? But for whatever reason, we call them keyboard warriors. So just remember, youth, everything you put on social media is there forever. So just be, very diligent about how you're representing yourself, because you yourself is your brand, right? And I know, when a lot of employers go on social media to see what you're doing on there before they, even entertain, doing like interviews. So if you're on there just giving her with lateral violence, spreading negativity all over the place, they're going to be like, whoa, is this the kind of energy we want in our office? Probably not. So just be mindful of that. So what does it look like? It's hard to define, but in the workshop, we act out a lot of lateral violence, which is really fun. It's just fun, like to act it out in a safe space. Just get in there. So to deny, that thing that says, I don't even see you, like I'm denying your existence. I don't even see you. That happens a lot. You walk into a space, sometimes with your own people, and they're just like, and you're walking by. It's like you don't exist. Belittling, you don't matter. It's that message of whatever you have to offer is not good, right? So we're belittling. Excluding, you don't belong here. This is a big one in Indian country. It's like, oh, they don't belong. They don't live here. You live in Whitehorse. Your eyes are green. You're this, you're that. You're not status. You're status. You're la, la, la. Blah, whatever it is people find to use as a reason to make someone to feel excluded, they will. And again, that to me, that's like soul murder, right? Because it's, again, as Indigenous people, who we are it's all we have left. Who we are, our identity, and where we belong. And then our own people we love the most, you don't belong here for whatever reason. Undermining, oh, look, Gary's trying to learn language. I think I'll go over there and just wreck it on him. You don't know how to say that word right. All those kinds of things that people do to wreck things. And for me personally, the undermining or sabotaging, I call it sometimes, is so hard for me to comprehend. But I know it's coming from a place of pain. It doesn't make it okay, but that's where it's coming from. Silencing, just be quiet. You don't have a right to talk. Threatening, do it or else. And intimidation, also a form of threats. So it happens in a lot of different ways, and maybe we'll go to the next slide, see what's on my next slide here. So lateral violence obviously is not power. Actually, let's go back. Well, you don't have to go back. I'll just stay at this one. But I just wanted to act out one form of lateral violence, which is my favorite, by the way. It's called lateral violence stink eye. And so, because nonverbal, the nonverbals are really powerful ways that people do lateral violence to each other. It's like, I don't even have to say anything. I'll just use my body and my face to do lateral violence. So lateral violence stink eye is this. Okay, have you ever walked into a room with a bunch of our people and you're just, minding your own business? Here, I'll try to do it. Just minding your own business. You got your Starbucks. You come walking in. It was so silly walking in with a cake. So you walk in and you look over and someone goes. I'll do it over here. So you walk in and you just instantly look over and someone goes at you. And you're like, oh my God, what, for me, it used to, before I started teaching this workshop, if someone did that to me, you might as well have just flung a spear into my heart. Because I'd be like, gunk, oh my God, so-and-so doesn't like me, and then I'd get all worried and flustered and anxious, and I'd sit down and I'd start thinking about every interaction we ever had over the last 20 years. I did something. It's my fault. I'm bad. Marilyn's bad because so-and-so looked at me like that, and I go on this whole thing. It's 3 a.m. I can't sleep. It's 3 weeks later now and I'm still worried about it, and I know I'm being a little silly, but I'm serious. I'd be worried about it for weeks, until I finally realized, after doing this work, I didn't do anything. I was just in the line of fire of somebody projecting their own pain out, And maybe they couldn't even see me. Maybe they don't have their glasses on. They're like, who's that? But to me, it looks like a glare, that look, like the look of death, the look of disapproval. And since then, with the whole deadly anti movement, I've also developed the mean anti glare. Who wants to be my victim for this one? Because you're probably going to have to go smudge afterwards. Gary, of course. I'm pretty sure Gary's probably seen this look before from me. Okay, so here's mean anti. Did you guys see it? Here, come over here, Gary. The one thing I love about Gary is he totally listens to me. Come over here, Gary. Okay, here's me, Nancy. It's okay if you have to smudge, we get it. So yeah, it's just like take you out just with one look, right? Like take you out with one look. So the nonverbals are super, super deadly. And also there's just we call it direct aggression. You know, someone comes in here and starts hollering at all of us, right? You guys are stupid. Why are you doing this? You know, people are hungry and you're in here just doing, you know, useless work or whatever. We've all been at a meeting in our community where someone's come in and hollered at us, hollered around, you know, and it is a form of lateral violence. Or the indirect, you know, the trying to sabotage, the trying to, you know, quietly take somebody down. And then, of course, what we call the divisive lateral violence, which divides communities, pits us against them, you know, and really, really hurts the community. So lateral violence is obviously not power, it's disempowerment. Next slide, please. So why does it happen? And we can trace back, you know, sometimes when people ask me, what is lateral violence? I'll say, it's when we're just mean to each other, hurtful, you know, and one of the things I remember, and this is so crazy that I remember this, but I have a very vivid memory of when I was like 5 years old. And, you know, I love my family. We're very beautiful, loving, strong people, but just like everyone else, lateral violence is there too. And I remember when I was 5, thinking to myself one time, how come everyone's so mean to each other? I thought. And really what I was, why I thought that is because it was like people couldn't say anything nice. There always just had to be like that dig, you know, like that hurtful thing. You know, oh, looks like you're gaining weight. Or, you know, like, why are you trying to do that? You're not going to be able to get through school. You know, those kinds of things that people say, you know, that are really hurtful. So why does it happen? And, you know, I always will maintain the fact that our people are innately kind and gentle and patient with each other. You know, when we look back at our cultures and our own teachings, nobody in their right mind would come into a space with people and start hollering at them. That was just not in our culture, in our protocols, in our own traditional laws. We don't talk bad to people. In fact, in our culture, in Tlingit culture, the worst possible thing you could do is say something bad to people. And it's particularly our opposites. Because all of us have, you know, people on the other side, and all across the Yukon. There's wolf people, there's crow people. And me as a wolf, the worst possible thing I could do is say something offensive to the crow people, to my opposites. And a long time, that would conjure up a lot of repercussions. My whole clan would have to pay those people we offended, especially our opposites, by either paying through a collection or having a potlatch for them. So people were brought up knowing exactly how to speak, exactly. How do I interact with people? How do I behave with people? If I go up to Selkirk First Nation, I can't just go in there and say anything to people. And when I was really young, when I first came back from university, I got the coolest job ever. It was the Elders Documentation Project. I think we were still Indians. I think we were still Council for Yukon Indians still. And then shortly after, we were Council for Yukon First Nations. But anyway, so I got to spend like 3 years just driving around the Yukon talking to elders, which I'm so thankful for that opportunity. You know, and I feel like it was because I didn't have the opportunity to do a proper rites of passage ceremony because I was displaced from all of us. I felt like that was the time that for me for that. So one of the things I heard elders say a lot, you know, when we asked them about traditional laws, I heard a lot of them say, you can't just talk any old way to people. And what they meant is you have to be intentional. You have to be thoughtful. You have to understand, what is our relationship? How am I supposed to behave with you? What do I do? You know, wasn't just haphazard chaos. You know, often that kind of label is put on us as Indigenous people, that society was just chaos and crazy. It wasn't. It was very structured, and even down to the way that I behave with people and who I talk to, how do I talk to them. So words, and all of you who are learning language, you know our languages are languages of love, of love. You know, like in Tlingit, the people we hold up the most, we refer to them as our, and I heard elders say this too, my daddy's people. And they meant they're opposites, because our parents, you know, have to be like from the two opposite clans. So my father's people, they're the most important people to us, and we love you. And when you hear old elders, you know, and Hitsati, who are like traditional clan leaders, because, you know, part of our nation is in Alaska as well, when we hear them speaking, you can tell they have been trained on how to speak, because all they do is talk about the opposites. And that's what Gary's referring to, is we're not supposed to talk so much about ourselves as a clan, but we hold up the other people. We hold them up and we support them. So where do we see the source of lateral violence happening? You guessed it. We learned how to be mean at residential school. And we've had many, many survivors there who told us we were surviving minute by minute at that school. And sometimes that meant we had to be mean to each other. Sometimes that meant we had to hurt each other. And we learned how to be mean from the people who were taking care of us, right? Like, we know the story, we know that history, and we know that it's still with us, very much part of with us. And so the experiences cause deep emotional hurt and grief. And when we also consider we were no longer allowed to have our ceremony, we couldn't practice ceremony, and that is our natural way of working through emotions, because human beings need to work through their emotions. You can't just bottle up pain and anger forever, because what's going to happen eventually? It's going to explode like a volcano. And then that anger, that pain, that hurt gets projected, you know, at the people closest to us. And who are the people closest to us? Our families, our, you know, our clans, our people we work with, the people in our community, our dance groups. I'm just joking about that. We actually work very hard at being kind to each other. So we end up emotionally hurting the people we love the most, you know, and that doesn't feel very good. So a lot of the participants in the workshop who have had the courage to say, oh my God, I do lateral violence. And we've heard that a lot, where people are like, I do this, and I don't want to do this. And they tell us, and I know this myself because I have done lateral violence. I've been a target, I've definitely witnessed it, as mostly everyone, you know, will identify with. It doesn't feel good to hurt the people you love the most. And in fact, it just perpetuates that trauma cycle. It just perpetuates it and strengthens that when we are in that place. So next slide. So one of the key themes that has emerged from the work that we do is that hurt people, right? So emotional lateral violence is a way to cover up feelings of shame, humiliation, and vulnerability, and replace them with the perception of pride and respect. And we know that's not true, right? We know that's not true, but as human beings, we start telling ourselves things, right? We start a narrative within that isn't always right. And one of those narratives is that thing that says, you know, when we talk about shame, we have a whole section on shame. It's too bad you guys missed that because it's awesome. Talking about shame. Yes, shame. But it's very, very fascinating, you know, that where human beings go with what I refer to as internalized shame. And a part of intergenerational trauma is internalized shame. And that's that thing in you that says, Marilyn, you're bad. You're not smart. You are no good. You aren't, you know, all of those things that have been put on us, we take that. And part of that intergenerational trauma, that has been passed down. So we have to fight that, because that voice is lying to you. It is not right. It's not true, because we know we are strong, we are beautiful, we are noble people. And we come from the strongest of strong, the strongest, most beautiful, kindest ancestors. So James Gilligan did a lot of work in prisons, in the prisons, trying to understand violence and the source of it. And what he found is that violence occurs when people see no means of undoing or preventing their own humiliation, except by humiliating others. So those feelings of pain are so strong and so hurtful, and I have no way of dealing with them. So now I'm just going to project them out on you guys and whoever is walking by, whoever is there in that moment. So a lot of lateral violence is reactionary, and it is in the moment. No one, I didn't wake up this morning and say to myself, okay, today I'm going to go to that conference and I'm just going to lateral violence the hell out of Gary. I'm going to wreck his day. I'm just going to destabilize him. And people don't wake up with that kind of plan in their head. It just happens in the moment. Something triggers you. It's like I look over there. Jedrick looks way too happy, and I don't like it because I don't feel happy. So I'm going to project something. People don't articulate it like that. These are feelings, and they're in the moment. So it's very reactionary why people do this, and really connected to that feeling of shame. Next slide, please. So what is lateral kindness? One of the things we learned is that we spoke a lot about lateral violence in the early days, but we only kind of mentioned kindness, kind of under the thought that, everyone knows what kindness is, right? Like we all know what that means. But one time, a woman in my community shared with Thomas, after she did the workshop, she said, Thomas, I really liked the workshop. It was good. I learned a lot. But I don't know what you mean by kindness, because I went to residential school and I did not experience kindness. My parents weren't kind. My partners have never been kind. My children aren't kind. No one's kind at work. I don't know what you mean by that. And when he came back and told me that, I was just like, it was like one of those moments of, whoa, of course. How would someone know what that means if they have never experienced it, right? And I know that sounds kind of crazy, but some people don't know what it is because it doesn't exist around them. So we realized we have to fully define what this means as well. So, and to me, I mentioned earlier, lateral kindness was the counter to lateral violence, but it is also what I consider to be a major form of Indigenous resistance, because we're saying, no, we're not taking that on. We're not taking all of that and putting it onto other people, because if we do that, they won. The oppressor won, because it is divide and conquer. Make us all not like each other and hurt each other. They don't, our oppressor doesn't have to work as hard because we're doing it ourselves. So as a form of resistance, we're saying, no, we're not doing this anymore. And there's some of our youth in our dance group doing their thing. All right, next slide, please. So what do we mean by Indigenous lateral kindness? You have to press it again. Thanks. So specifically, we mean lateral kindness takes place among members of a community that has experienced oppression collectively, such as an Indigenous community. It occurs when members of the same oppressed group seek power and protection by lifting each other up. And by lifting each other up, we mean acts that acknowledge, value, include, encourage, give voice, appreciate, or support another member of the group. So lateral kindness makes people feel safe, capable, and confident. Lateral kindness improves the health, well-being, and productivity of individuals. Lateral kindness strengthens community by fostering unity among subgroups. So we can see that this is the positive part of who we are. And in many cases, people are already doing this, right? A lot of people are already doing this. When we talk about lateral violence, we don't mean like every single person just walking around, glaring each other down, being mean all the time. We see many acts of lateral kindness where people are doing this. But I love it because in our culture, we do have that terminology. Hold each other up. We hold each other up. So we support, acknowledge, and we make sure everybody feels seen. And one of the examples that I think about a lot, when we think about Auntie Angela, and I never met Uncle George, he was already passed away before I was born, but I remember the elders of my grandparents' generation, and still people today. They would come in, and you can't just start. They'd come in, and they'd walk around the whole circle, seeing everybody. Hello, how are you? Making you feel acknowledged and seen, and valued. And that's really the core of it, is that every single person in our community is important. And every single person, regardless of whatever it is that they're going through, is valued, and that they are made to feel like that. Because so much of our history is being devalued, and put down, pushed down, thrown to the wayside, not heard at all, not even seen as being a human being. So we counter that with what we refer to as lateral kindness. Next slide, please. So I see you, you matter, and you're important. So again, we were talking about emotional safety. And, when we look at what emotional safety is, there's been tons and tons and tons of research about emotional safety in the workplace, particularly. But we, include this in communities, in all of the things that we do, language classes, whatever it is. So when we talk about emotional safety, we're ensuring that people feel included and also they feel safe to learn. Did anybody ever experience being humiliated in front of the classroom as a child? And what did that do? Probably shut you down. You probably tried to avoid as much as possible. And as a result, you didn't learn, still today I cannot do algebra. I never had to do algebra, ever. But I got humiliated when we first started learning algebra, in junior high school. And I could never learn how to do it, ever. My mom had tutors. We tried so hard. I just had this barrier because I got humiliated in front of the classroom. So we need to feel safe in order to be able to learn, safe to contribute. What I have to offer is important, safe to challenge. Because lateral kindness doesn't mean that every single one of us in here agrees 100% of the time. We're allowed to have different opinions, but it's just the way that we do that, right? That I respect that you think differently than me, that's okay. But it's the way that we interact and, walk through those differences that matters. So fear is the enemy. It freezes initiative, ties up creativity, yields compliance instead of commitment, and represses what would otherwise be an explosion of innovation. And I happen to know, because of the research we've done, that one place where a lot of lateral violence exists is among nurses, the nursing community, which is, a whole nother, I think, thing unto itself. But people freeze up, and this comes from Timothy R. Clark, The 4 Stages of Psychological Safety, Defining the Path to Inclusion and Innovation. So this is an area, okay, cool, thank you. According to my watch, I have, no. Okay, so let's go to the next one. So fostering emotional safety is an essential element for effective learning and building teams in all areas. The realignment with our own values and enacting them, reclamation of our own identity with kindness, inclusion, building strong and safe communities. So we start to see, a trend where happy, healthy people feel safe and are willing to take more creative chances, to present themselves authentically, to show up here authentically. This is me, the good, the bad, and the ugly. And I know you guys aren't going to hurt me because of my flaws. I know you're just going to lift me and you're going to help me. Yeah, I have a master's degree in Indigenous governance, but I don't know how to do Excel. Can someone help me, please? Instead of, I knew you couldn't do it, that kind of attitude, which we're all scared of. So happy, healthy people feel safe and are willing to take more creative chances, to present themselves authentically, to show up every day and give it their all. And that's what we want. That's what you want in all of the work that you do in your community, among your colleagues, at the First Nation government, at the band office, in the research work that you're doing, with everyone around you. You want them to give it their all. Next slide, please. So we can begin to effectively walk our healing journey when we do not feel. Oh, wait, sorry, I messed that up. And this is my own quote. So how can we begin to effectively walk our healing journey when we do not feel safe emotionally among the people we love the most? Lateral kindness is an essential element in Indigenous healing, and I believe that with everything in my soul. We cannot heal if we feel that we are not safe emotionally. How can anyone sober up? How can anyone do anything that profound when they feel they're going to just get hurt by the people they love the most? They can't. Okay, next slide. And those are some of our junior dancers that are all grown up now and taller than me. All right. So transforming lateral violence into lateral kindness, some of the things we can do: awareness and naming it, taking action in the moment, demonstrating loving strength. These are the tool part, which I couldn't do here. Preparing, practicing, and setting the tone on how we gather, work, and interact with each other, and commitment and responsibility. It's not going to change by itself. We have to be committed, and we have to be intentional. Next slide, please. So it will take your leadership and intention, mentorship, and commitment to provide awareness and action for transformative change. One last quote here: if you can banish fear, install true performance-based accountability, and create a nurturing environment that allows people to be vulnerable as they learn and grow, they will perform beyond your expectations and theirs. Cool. Next slide. And just some pictures of the Lateral Kindness Movement, and we refer to it now as the Lateral Kindness Movement, people from across the land. That's Newfoundland, Ottawa, and I think, Little Sam and Carmacks First Nation. Woohoo! All right, next slide. So believe, commit, and just do it. So thank you so much. I really, really appreciate for having this time to share with you just some of my knowledge and some of my experience, and hope that this is helpful for you. If you want to check us out, we're on Instagram, and we also have kind of a Ishan TikTok going, but we're going to be launching like a cool website and all of that soon. And we did a bunch of videos of lateral violence starring Gary. And a few other people from our community. All right, Guneshish, thank you. Masicho Shonithan.
Guneshish Yadaltin. Thank you so much, Marilyn.